The tank is the most important role with the minimal room for error. If a DPS or support has a bad game, the win can still be within reach. But if the tank has a bad game, everyone has a bad game. Now these tanks ain't gonna change that, but I feel they make the most impact when they are on the field. And as always, I'll give a few tips with each character to help you get a better feel of them. So help me continue to do that by clicking that like, subscribe and bell thingy, and following me on the Twitch and Twitters to see when I go live and have some fun with moments like this.
Hey techno freaks, Techno Odin here. Yes, my voice is still scuffed, but through the power of silence, I have meringue to hook up a machine to my pectoral muscles, and with this, I can translate their moments into speech. So far so good, so how we all do.
And with that said, I am Tech, and here are my top 5 tanks in Overwatch 2 for November 22. Dishonorable mentions: Doomfist.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Now Doomfist was my go-to DPS back in Overwatch 1. The idea of a fighting game character in a first-person shooter really appealed to me, and it was a shame when they took my old faithful and gutted him and repurposed him to be a tank, when he is still clearly a DPS, and now not even a good one at that. He can't kill, he can't defend, hell, I don't even think I can put him over the f***ing hamster for disruption. Can't wait for Season 2 so I can either get my Doomfist back or go for the cooler Doomfist that is Ramatra. Probably gonna be the latter. Honorable mentions: Reinhardt. Trust me, if personal bias had its way, he would be my first. The design of a big-ass hammer-wielding knight is just too good, but it's his kit that we need to talk about. His primary fire is a long swing of his great hammer that has a fair bit of range and is more precise than a VAR call during an offside, because so long as there is a freaking pixel of the enemy on that screen, that is a freaking hit. And since it only needs 3 swings to kill a 200 to 250 hero,
that's a lot of damage!
His secondary is his 1200 HP shield. This blocks most attacks coming his way and covers a fair bit of area. You use this to push in and get to the more advantageous spots. You don't just stand there in a corner and hide behind it. Now you can move that shield in any direction, and if you hold both secondary and primary fire buttons, you can look around without moving the shield. This can help you look for flankers looking to get the drop on you. His first ability has Rein charge at the enemy, pinning any unlucky soul caught in the center, leading to a quick death for any 200 HP hero as they are sandwiched against the wall. Anyone not caught in the pin but hit by it will be booped away, so it has huge potential to send a lot of people off the edge, and if you time it just right, you can throw the enemy you've pinned off said edge by cancelling just before you both go over, making a lot of players very salty. His second ability, Fire Strike, launches a fairly okay speed projectile in a straight line. This projectile has 2 charges, passes through barriers like Rein's shield, and can cut through multiple enemies. It's also an easy safe ult charger, as it can net you a nice amount of ult depending on how many enemies you connect with. His ultimate Earth Shatter sends a ground pound shockwave out in a cone-like manner, knocking anyone caught in said cone to the floor. This allows you to follow up with hammery goodness. The closer an enemy is to the hammer as it strikes the ground, the more damage they take, with the hammer itself dealing around 250 damage, killing every DPS and support bar Torbjorn and Bastion. Lousy stupid armor. This ult's biggest weakness, however, is barriers, or anything that can block line of sight, so a Rein shield or Brigitte's shield will full on cancel it out. One tip I have with this ultimate specifically is that you can 180 it. So say you are blocking the enemy front line and 2 or 3 enemies flank your back line. You can use the same camera trick with your shield to look behind you, then press your ult. You will snap 180 degrees and they will be sitting ducks for an Earth Shatter. Or you can spin your shield to face the flanking enemies, hold the buttons down and continue to move the camera to face back to the tank in the front line, then snap with that hammer down. Now my biggest tip for Rein is to don't be shy. A lot of Rhines think that hiding behind the shield and never advancing is good. All it's doing is wasting down the time you have. An aggressive Rhine with good healing on a push is dangerous. Go in with your team, slap a few enemies, shield up and protect that team, then go back to a swing in when your health is decent. Yes, you go for cover if your shield's down, but you've got to make sure you're blocking some damage coming at your team, be it with your body or that shield, and only charge when your healer is still in line of sight. Too many players charge mindlessly past 6 walls and no way back. This I do say is partially on the fact that Ryan has no real fun kit, and why he really does need a bit of a rework come Season 2 or Season 3. His kit was okay for 6v6, but this game is pacey, and Ryan was always been designed to be more static. And that's why he really doesn't get into that top 5, he's just not there yet. At number 5 we have Orisa. This updated version takes our mild-mannered traffic warden and turns them into a full-on fucking riot squad. Aggressive twirly baton and all. Her primary fire is still the frickin' minigun projectile that doesn't really scream protect and serve, more like maim and slaughter, and she has no ammo. Instead, this works on a heat system. The longer she fires, the more her minigun will overheat. A good tip is to let go of the fire the moment you secure a kill, as the cooling rate is wicked fast. Her secondary has her go all Julius Jaego and fling a big ass javelin that will stun the enemy when hit and will deal huge amounts of damage if it slams them into a wall, to which you can finish them off with your primary fire. Very useful to catch a hog mid-heal or anybody who is more active with their ult. Use any practice range or aim trainer we've covered in previous videos to get your timing down. Ability 1 fortifies Orisa, giving her overhealth, mitigating damage and making her immune to all forms of crowd control. And a sleep dart, negated. Ryan's charge, Ryan down. While Orisa is like this, they can still do everything else we've already covered, including their second ability, which is the Twirly Baton. This move has both defensive and offensive capabilities. Defensive wise, it removes all forms of shots and projectiles coming its way, so if you didn't have Fortify up, Anna still wouldn't be able to nade or dart you. But offensive wise, it acts like a high octane riot shield, increasing Orisa's movement speed to allow them to push in, while booping enemies away ever so slightly. So with this you can effectively recreate that one scene from 300. Her ultimate is shit. This has Orisa spin her javelin again, sucking enemies in and unleashing a huge wave of death. It's chargeable to the point of dealing 500 damage, so can kill almost anyone bar the chunkiest of tanks. The only downside is, as I've said, is shit. The suck is only for the initial spin. Once that happens, they are free to move out as fast as they want. So by the time you have enough to even kill a 200 enemy, they will probably have had enough time to escape it, so it becomes a less useful gravity orb. Still, it's not useless. You are fortified when using it, which you can double fortify, making you really hard to stop when you are in this attack. And you can at least remove half their health before most squishy heroes can get out. So if you have enough collaboration, it's still going to be a bloodbath. My big tip though is to combine this with Sojourn's Disruptor. If Sojourn can hit the floor where you're standing with that Disruptor, those heroes will have their movement speed slowed down, so you'll be able to get a little more time to maybe take a kill. And killing is more or less what Orisa is. The real saving grace is that initial damage potential their primary and secondary combo is. It's almost close to a basic one-shot with good enough aim. And the Fortify and Javelin Spin make Orisa really hard to put down. Like with Zarya before her nerfs, you keep Orisa nicely healed and she can be a real game changer. At number 4 we have D.Va, Blizzard's true image for the average gamer. Smelling only of Doritos and Mountain Dew, she utilizes a powerful mech to bully her opponents until that mech is destroyed, to which she becomes the bullied as Baby D.Va. Her primary fire is basically a rapid fire akimbo shotguns, dealing more damage the closer you are, to the point where all the enemy heroes will know how Robocop felt. In baby form, her primary is just a projectile pistol. Damage isn't great, accuracy is projectile based, but it fills her ult charge almost rapidly, so she can get back into her mech. Her secondary fire is the Defense Matrix, an anti-projectile field that erases almost all forms of objects in the radius. You don't even have to look at the enemy, just make sure the party is within that matrix field. This move isn't on a cooldown, it has a gauge that refills, so you want to use it smartly, but make sure you use it. A lot of new players are hardly using it, and if they are, it's only for themselves. I blame that mostly on the new free-to-play aspect and the transition of 6v6 to 5v5, getting used to the whole you are the only tank now, but yeah, don't be stingy with that matrix. Her first ability uses her mech's thrusters to fly around. This deals a small amount of damage and causes knockback if you connect with the enemy, and you can use all of your kit at your disposal while you fly. A good tip is to use your melee attack as you connect with the enemy to get more damage. You can get at least 2 melee attacks during your flight windows. Boom! Big damage. Especially if we throw in her second ability. This launches a barrage of micro missiles in a straight line, dealing massive damage. This can also be done while using your primary fire and defense matrix, meaning you can still get damage while you negate damage. Her ultimate is the Diva Bomb, where her mech self-destructs, taking anyone within its radius out. The damage is very big, and the fall off is very little, with most heroes just evaporating around 15 meters. Her baby Diva ult gets her back in her mech, and if any non-tank heroes are too close when she gets in the mech, well, they dead. Now Diva's biggest value is that bomb. It is a game changer. So long as it doesn't break line of sight, it has the potential to wipe out the entire team. Not many ults get that, and she can use the thrusters to create a self-flying nuke, and that is what my big tip is. Train yourself in getting the right placements for those bombs, and for that we go to the workshop again, as Diva Bomb Trainer. This allows you to see where your bomb will be placed, how it goes off, and whether it's line of sight. The main damage zone is shown with the purple orb. The insta-death zone and the place where the bomb blows off is the white orb, and the tether is the line of sight from the orb to you. If there is no tether, you have broken line of sight and would be safe from the blast. Really, you always want that white orb in the air, so that there's little room for them to take cover. This is what makes her scary. The only downside I have with her is that while she is a fairly decent tank when used right, she still feels like she has imposter syndrome. She was the peeler, and now she has to be the main tank, with everyone else in the front line. And if she can't save the back line, she is very easy to cause a stagger, because when everyone else in the game dies in a fight, they die. Mercy can raise them, but otherwise, it's a respawn. Diva has that second chance of life with Baby Diva, but this allows the team to either take their time killing her slightly so that she respawns much later than everyone else, wasting time for the Diva team, as either they go in to try and help only to be too late and now there is more stagger potential, or they hold off and now wait for the Diva to respawn, killing time. Now the whole scenario is still a risky play for the non-Diva team, as the Diva can mech up, but she still has to stand still to mech up, and you can kill her before that mech appears. So yeah, it's my belief that while she is good, there's still a heavy risk to the everyday player. Our bronze medal goes to Sigma, my current tank main. Seriously, what is it with me and barrier tanks? This tragically broken scientist likes slapping people with his balls. His very bouncy balls. No need for phrasing, as we are talking about his primary fire, where he sends 2 deadly spheres at the opponent that explode on both impact and after a set distance. These spheres can also deflect off surfaces, so wall bounce and floor bounce are very useful for catching someone behind cover. His secondary fire erects a barrier that he can control where he places, by holding down that secondary fire button. This pushes the shield forward and can be a great ploy to isolate an enemy from their team. That tank overcommits, you throw the barrier just behind them and watch the team shred them as they scream for the heals they can't receive. Now it only has 700 health, so it ain't something you can just keep out. If you don't need it, press the secondary fire again to retrieve it. It has a little bit of a cooldown before it can be used again, so make sure that there's no diva bombs ready to be used. Throwing your shield out means you're going to break it, or you're in that shield cooldown. His first ability, Kinetic Grasp, comes in. This is just Sigma's version of the baton spin and defense matrix. However, at the end of its duration, a percentage of any damage from projectile and hit scan shots will be converted into overhealth. This gives you time to let your shield recharge while also mitigating damage to the team. His secondary ability has Sigma throw a rock at his opponents.
It was a big rock.
Yes, it was. This rock hits pretty hard, will stun any enemy it hits directly, has splash damage, and ignores all forms of defense matrix style attacks. Still won't knock down a fortified Orisa though. It's also got to have some weakness, and that is the fact that it's a little bit slow, because, well, rock. But if you do connect it alongside a quick primary fire, it's more or less an instant death for 200 HP heroes. Take this into the flanker duels or firing range workshops to get the hang of landing this thing. His ultimate, Gravity Flux, lifts enemies caught in the AoE into the air and slams them down with all the force of a neutron star, removing half their max HP. So tanks take a huge hit and everyone else is more or less one shot afterwards. You can also still fire your primary fire while using this ult, and that is your tip. Go into your custom matches, grab your Annas, set Sigma to headshots only, boost those ult charges to 500, and just practice against the AI to get the hang of firing your shots into them before they get slammed. Could also do this again in the workshop's firing range or the flanker duels practice to test it on a more human level of AI, but yeah. My biggest tip for Sigma as a whole is never let that shield break. You want to cycle through the shield, the grasp, and the rock to keep the pressure on the enemy team. This is how Sigma becomes deadly with his crew. He has great damage, great ultimate synergy with the likes of Reaper's Death Blossom, a good Sojourn or Widow with some headshots before the enemy can even hit the ground. You're going to look at some really good moments. His only weakness, shared by a lot, is his movement. He is a very slow character that outside of his ultimate can't really go anywhere or get back to the team if something happens. He needs to rely on Lucio in a normal encounter or Kiriko's ult, which is why I placed Kiriko and Lucio where they are. But he is effectively, as of now, the second best shield tank in the game, only beaten by our number 2, Winston. Look, we have a shield tank with mobility. What more do you want from me? Winston utilizes his primary fire to tickle multiple enemies to death. Maybe, while unleashing a sharp burst of electricity with its secondary. These on their own are nothing special. The tickle is literally a tickle, and the secondary needs to be fully charged to deal almost as much damage as a single Zen Orb. But when you combine that with his abilities, things start to get interesting. His first ability, Rocket Jump, is Winston's movement tool, and has 3 somewhat settings. Looking level at the enemy player or to the floor will result in a short leap that is fairly quick. Aiming slightly above the enemy will have him leap at a nice arc, to which he can land with a double arm slap. The final one is where you look almost directly up. This has Winston leap to the skies like the majestic animal he is, then crash down to the floor, dealing damage to anyone underfoot. If you land directly on top of the enemy, you will deal a fair amount of damage, which can be extended with our melee. Leap up, and just as you're about to land directly on the opponent, go for the melee. If done perfect, you should barely see the fist come out. This will take around a third of a 200 hero's health. Add a full charge secondary to that, and we are in prime tickle zone. So yeah, go to the firing range workshop or normal and practice the leap and melee. Then once you've got the hang of that, practice adding the shot to the leap and then throw it all together, and boom, Mr. Tickles is coming for skulls. His second ability is his barrier. Another 700 HP barrier, but this one has a time limit, mainly because it was too good at one point. This is your main defensive and offensive tool. You can throw the barrier down mid-leap to a spot your team can run into, or use it as you land and weave in and out of the bubble while you tickle everyone. His ultimate is Primal Rage, where Winston will go bananas, making him a giant bullet sponge that swats the opponent away. He deals okay damage, but it isn't an ultimate that has a wow factor unless there's a wall. This is where juggling comes in. Winston can use the combination of his knockback and low leap to get the enemy into the air, and like a freaking hacky sack, will attempt to keep them in the air as long as possible. To get this down, we once again go to the workshop. I can't show much as I'm still learning the basics of this technique myself, but this tool allows you to set up both your enemy and your own positions and practice at your own pace. Very fun and very helpful. And that is kind of Winston. He's a very helpful tank. He can protect, he can disrupt, and he can make a real nuisance of himself. There's no real question as to why he was a meta pick for Overwatch League. Hell, the only two main picks for the tank in this format was Sigma and Winston. So if it wasn't for people having enough time with Kiriko to change things up, the two barrier tanks would be the top two. The problem is he just can't kill unless you throw a lot at the enemy. You have to make those leaps count, and while he beats both barrier tanks in the movement department, damage wise he doesn't come close. However, there is a tank that, thanks to Kiriko, becomes too much to deny, and that is our #1 gold medalist, Roadhog. Oh no, I ain't joking, this dude is a menace when a Kiriko is on the field. But we need to talk his kit first so you know why. So, first, his primary is a big ol' shotgun blast that is the only real consistent melter in the game. You get up close and personal, everybody's gonna get torn apart. The secondary is the primary with a delayed twist. It fires a ball of debris that explodes into the same shot we already have, making it effectively a mid-range shredder. Now, on their own, they're okay, but combine this with his big killer, the hook, we have a different story. The hook is the Scorpion Spear from MK. You latch this to an enemy, they are pulled into almost point blank range, and will take enough HP away that you can insta-kill a Mei or lower, so long as you take a little step forward to make sure your shot is perfect. You can also turn slightly as you hook to rearrange the position of your opponent. This can net you a ledge kill on some annoying tanks, or allow you to use your big frame to block enemy support. You can also hook things like the Diva Bomb and try to arrange them somewhere where they can't deal as much damage or become that much of a threat, but every time I've seen a Hog try this, it always ends in disaster. Again, flank training or the workshop firing range makes Rhodey a happy hookster. His second ability is the Heavenly Vape, or Take a Breather as it's supposed to be known, where Roadhog sucks up the healing goodness, rapidly regenerating his health. This is his main mitigation tool, halving the damage you take as you use it to heal up after soaking damage, or soaking damage as you're healing. With the right timing, you can use that big body vapage to block a Diva Bomb, something the Hogs that hooked the bomb tend to forget to do. His ultimate, Whole Hog, is the ultimate keep away. Think of it as you're firing an army of raging Winstons. Damage wise it can be fairly decent, but the kickback is murder. Again, it's a very simple move and doesn't need too much tips. Hell, Roadhog himself is a very simple tank. Rhodey hooks, he kills, he frustrates, he mitigates. His only biggest weakness is that fire rate and movement speed. He relies so much on the hook, and if he doesn't land it, he's almost useless. That's where Kiriko comes in. Kitsune Rush speeds Hog up to become a freaking death roller. Everything is faster. Hook cooldown, vape cooldown, fire rate, and Whole Hog makes this one ultimate pure value. And that is just with the tank. Add everyone else into the mix and oh boy, you know this ultimate's gonna get nerfed sooner or later. No doubt. But until it does, if there's a Kiriko in the party, the Hog will eat good tonight. And if you want me to eat good tonight, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell thingy, and follow me on the Twitch and Twitter so you can hang out and chill with me during streams. Also, I'd like to know who are your top 5 tanks. Let me know, in the comment section below, and finally tune in next time where we go through my top 5 damage heroes. But until that day, this has been Techno Odin. Stay safe, claim skulls, smash bosses, and go whole hog.